Reading that forced me to recognize the pride I took in my opinions, so much better informed than most, and in my actions so much more appropriate than most. Pride, in fact, had ruled my life, and it had done so by lurking unseen and unsuspected in every thought and deed. I'll tell you, that was enough to shake the very foundation of my life, and I have resolved to do something about it. But the second thing that contributed to my change of heart was witnessing what happened to Mildred Allen, my next-door neighbor and longtime friend. Chapter 2. Mildred is a law unto herself, and she doesn't mind who knows it. In fact, she glories in it. Having been brought up an only child in a privileged household, she had been her father's darling. He had raised her in great wealth, and to assume both the freedom and the burden of great wealth when he was gone. He had, in fact, reared her as he would have reared a son, teaching her to read financial reports, to understand stock options, to play the futures market, and to manage the Ed and Eleanor Beasley Foundation that seemed to exist solely to sponsor British television shows on PBS. I could be wrong about that, for I certainly did not know the extent of Mildred's financial interests. All I knew was that her father had taught her well, which put him years ahead of his time, in my estimation. But in the doing, he had also put her in the unrealistic position of expecting an entire life of ease with every desire fulfilled and every problem resolved before reaching her. You may wonder, as I occasionally had, what in the world a woman like that was doing in a small, almost rural town like Abbotsford. She could have been living among the beautiful people of California, or New York even, for goodness sakes, of Paris or London. Well, apparently at times in her youth she had, if the occasional offhand reference to her early life was any indication. Now, though, a yearly shopping trip to New York, which included a few Broadway shows, was the extent of her travels. By the time of which I'm speaking, she seemed perfectly content to stay home and queen it over our local society, such as it was, and do exactly what she wanted to do, which was next to nothing because she had Ida Lee to take up the slack. Ida Lee was a New York-trained professional housekeeper, personal manager, and hand-holder who ran Mildred's household with unfailing competence, while Mildred fiddled with stock portfolios, various charities, and rewriting her will. I liked Mildred and enjoyed her company, but not every day. Even though we were next-door neighbors, we weren't the constantly visiting kind. We could go for days, even weeks, with no contact at all, yet know that the other was available when needed. We got along well because we were on the same wavelength about most things, in spite of her being an Episcopalian, although not a very faithful one. "I can't do all that kneeling anymore, Julia," she'd told me. "And I hate to just sit there while everybody else is bobbing up and down." Not a very good reason to skip Sunday services, if you ask me, but then we Presbyterians are known for our upright stance on any number of things. I could understand Mildred's problem, though, for she had over the years put on a good bit of weight. To be frank, she was a large woman who blamed her size on a non-existent glandular condition. But then we all find excuses of one kind or another for our lapses, so I accepted hers for being as good as any. Mildred's other half, who often seemed only a fraction of that, was Horace, a man of few words but of attentive service. I never knew what to think of that marriage, since Mildred so obviously ruled the roost. But of course it wasn't up to me to judge. I couldn't help but wonder, though, why Horace put up with having to dance to her tune. Frankly, I thought the less of him for it, but gradually came to realize that he was not only amply compensated, but perfectly suited to the role. He often wore an ascot, and occasionally spent a week or so at a gentleman's spa somewhere in Arizona.